Alrighty, folks. The little yellow sign, little red, sign says we are live, we are live, we are live, and it is so. And we have the Horn News. When the headline reads, "Politician exposes Satan's Soros plan." It's on the Holmes front with Frank Holmes. Satan is alive and active on planet Earth, and George Soros is doing his will, destroying one patriotic nation after another, according to the Hungarian politicians. The mega-billionaire's war on countries that refuse to accept millions of Muslim immigrants from the Middle East is really Satan's Soros plan, he said. I'm going to butcher this name. Andres Aradsky tore the lid off of the plot on the floor of the Hungarian National Parliament in Budapest. Quote, "Yes, I speak of an attack by Satan," unquote, said Aradsky, the nation's energy undersecretary. Aradsky, who is a member of the Christian Democratic People's Party, said George Soros wants the European Union to siphon away the national sovereignty of its member nations, bribe them or force them to accept waves of Islamist immigrants, and destroy the traditional Christian civilization of each and every country in the world. That is absolutely correct. This Hungarian politician is absolutely correct. Soros admitted parts of the Soros plan, quote unquote, in an op-ed in 2015 calling for Europe to do nothing about the uncontrolled flood of Islamist immigrants. EU nations would just receive these people and their languages and customs, whether they liked it or not. Quote, "The EU has to accept at least 1 million Muslim asylum seekers annually for the foreseeable future," Soros wrote. Soros' plan for Europe wouldn't come cheap. Now, listen, perk your ears up here, Americans. Soros' plan for Europe wouldn't come cheap, and Americans would be on the hook for the bulk of it, he wrote. He wrote that the EU would need to make an annual commitment of at least 8 to 10 billion, with the balance coming from the United States. All right. So Europe pays 8 to 10 billion, we pay about 90 billion. 95 billion. Are you listening, Americans? Are you listening, Americans? I hope so. All right. He said the EU needed to develop a comprehensive plan that will reassert effective governance over its 28 member nations. Well, Mr. Hungarian Parliament, yeah, it's not going to happen, bro. Anyways, the most important thing, he wrote, is that the EU put an end to the panic because too many nations were opposed to being flooded with Muslim fundamentalists coming from terrorist sponsors. And why not? The jet-setting Soros can always flee to another one of his mansions behind massive gates secured by teams of armed guards. This is all part of his plan to destroy traditional religious culture and create a new world government, Radsky stated. Soros and his comrades want to destroy the independence and values of nation-states for the purpose of watering down the Christian spirit of Europe with the forced settlement of tens of millions of migrants, Radsky said. He said Soros was behind abortion, euthanasia, same-sex marriage, and the forced politicization of gender theory. Radsky said that though he was in Hungary at the time, he prayed in his heart with millions of Polish people during the Rosary of the Borders. Millions circled Poland, surrounded in prayer, and made a statement that their nation was closed to Islamic terrorism. Prayer is a powerful weapon, Radsky said, and George Soros will also experience this. I don't know about that, bro, but I hope so. Until then, he praised the government for mailing responses forms to every home in Hungary, asking their opinion on the, quote, Soros plan, unquote, earlier this month. Everyday people must, quote, make our opinions known about Satan Soros' plan but also for us to make our opinions known about what we think of our homeland's 1,000-year-old history, our national sovereignty, our freedom, and our beloved Europe, unquote. Hungary has come out swinging against Soros' financial and political war against the West. Prime Minister Viktor Orban is Soros' public enemy number one. He has exposed Soros' plans and massive influence on the governments of national and international bodies. He has opposed Soros opening his own university in Budapest. Hungary's deputy prime minister said that Soros' war is part of a long proto-communist hatred of God, freedom, and patriotism. I agree with that 100%. Quote, fundamentally, the root of this is hundreds of years ago started from Freemasonry's inspiration, which later had a Jacobean version and a Bolshevik version, and one of its many branches is the Soros-type extreme liberal thing, said Zolt, I'm going to butcher this, Zolt Zimjin on national radio the day after Radsky's speech. Extreme left-wing ideology, quote, hates Christian Europe's traditions and civilization, and if possible, even more hates the nation-states themselves. Media outlets, of course, have dismissed these warnings about Satan's plan to import terrorists as anti-Semitic hatred. The Forward, a left-leaning paper, called any denunciation of George Soros hate speech against all Jewish people. The paper said the national consultation, which does not mention Jews, Judaism, or Israel, is redolent of classic anti-Semitism, although the paper admits the word Jew was never uttered. This isn't even about Jews. This is about Muslims. Anyways, Soros, who was born Jewish, allegedly collaborated with the Nazis before fleeing his home country. A Soros spokesperson. Now, this is how powerful Soros is. He actually has his own fucking spokesperson. A Soros spokesperson told the Financial Times that normal European citizens have nothing to worry about. Oh, you mean like that British soldier that got his fucking head garroted right out in the middle of the fucking street, live during the day in broad daylight with thousands of witnesses watching? That guy? Yeah, he's kind of dead. Anyway, doesn't have anything to worry about. There is no such thing as a global conspiracy against Hungary orchestrated by George Soros, he said. Soros has made a fortune betting on the stock market, but the Hungarian people aren't buying his bull on this one. Quote, we want a Hungarian Hungary and a European Europe, said Orban. Hungarians overwhelmingly want to preserve their own culture, language, and borders, and they are rewarding politicians who are willing to do something about it. More than 80% of the Hungarian people support the two toughest parties on border security, Viktor Orban's Fidesz party and the even more nationalist Jacobic party. Orban seems to be a shoo-in for a win third term as prime minister in April. Meanwhile, Soros is ginning up his operations in the United States. He refiled his Open Society Foundation with $18 billion of his own personal wealth to wage political warfare against who? Against America. Against America. Maybe it isn't just political. Maybe it truly is demonic. Be sure to read the Horn News as we expose Soros' anti-American political maneuvers around the world. And say a prayer for America this Sunday and every day that Soros' money won't convince us to destroy our country's foundations and traditions and honors. Well, there you have it. So Soros is basically pulling out all stops to try to destroy Hungary, and the Hungarian people are fighting back just like Poland did. Poland said, hell no, we won't go, and they literally formed a human chain around the border of Poland. Did anybody hear about that? How many of you knew about that? The entire population of Poland literally wrung the border of their country, interlocked their hands, and literally prayed and said, no, you will not bring Muslims into our country, period. And what did they call that? There was a name they called that. Let me find it again. Where is it? The Rosary on the Borders, it's called. The Rosary on the Borders, it's called. The Polish people literally encircled their country and interlocked their arms and prayed and asked the gods to intervene and to not let no Muslims into their country for any reason. It's called the Rosary on the Borders. So if you want to Google it, Google it. But anyway, it looks like Hungary is now joining Poland in fighting against George Soros and his plan to literally destroy Europe and America. I don't think there's any question now that Soros wants to destroy Europe and America, and he's going to do it through Islam. Now, did you notice, though, the irony is that he's saying these Muslims are Semitic. No, Muslims are not Semitic. Jews are Semitic, not Muslims. Muslims are not Semitic. In fact, Muhammad's parents were not Jews or Christians at all. In fact, they weren't even pagan. Muhammad's parents worshiped demons. They were demonologists. They worshiped 350 demons, and the chief demon among them was an elderly demon from ancient Mesopotamia by the name of Sin. All right? He was otherwise known as Halal, and if you write Halal backwards, what do you get? Allah. And what did Aleister Crowley say? Write backwards, read backwards, speak backwards. Okay, Hallah, written backwards, is Allah. All right, so Allah is a demon from ancient Mesopotamia by the name of Sin. We have archaeological evidence to prove this. We have the little tiny statues with the little carving of the crescent moon in the chest to prove it. Okay, so Soros, is trying to use semantics and say that the Muslims are Semitic when they are not. All right, Semitic is Jew. All right, these are not Jews. These are Muslims. All right, and Soros wants to use Islam to crush Europe and America. And Hungary, according to this article, Hungary's government is actually saying no. We're not gonna allow that. We're not going to allow it in Hungary, at least. So that's good. Okay, first it was Poland, now it's Hungary. Hopefully more will join, and we can put a stop to Soros's plan. Because Soros, make no mistake, Soros does have a plan, and he intends to see it through. I wish I could show you the actual article, but unfortunately I can't get the damn screen share to work on this without crashing. So, oh well. Let's see. What I can do, though, is give you the link. I can do that, by gun. I'll give you the link. There you go. There's your link. But yeah. So Soros's plan is to destroy Christianity in Europe. Well, that's not really a surprise, though, is it? In fact, Soros doesn't just want to get rid of Christianity. He wants to get rid of paganism, too. That's why he's allowing the Muslims to do this. Because he knows the Muslims will kill people. And pagans will be like, hey, let's go hug a tree. Really. Most pagans are like, hey, let's go hug a tree, man, and smoke a doobie, right? So you can't use the pagans. So you got to have somebody that's mean, which is the Muslims. So, But yeah, that's where we're at right now. Hungary has now finally said enough is enough. And their actual politicians are like, hey, enough is enough. And they're joining up with Poland, apparently, to try and put a stop to Soros. So that's good news. That is good news. Refreshing to see, actually. Unfortunately, though, I think it's too late for Sweden. I think it's probably too late for Germany. Not sure about some of the other countries. But there's some countries in Europe, they're pretty much done. France, I don't know. I think France is kind of teetering yet. But it's not looking real good for Europe, guys. It's not looking real good for Europe. See, I tried to mention this years and years ago. In fact, I mentioned this twice. I mentioned it 10 years ago, and then I mentioned it again 5 years ago. I said that atheism creates a spiritual vacuum. And nature abhors a vacuum. Okay, so what happens when you create that spiritual vacuum? Here comes Islam to fill the void. Just like that. Islam comes in to fill that spiritual vacuum. And now you've got tyranny in the streets, literally. Like I said, that British soldier that was garroted right out in broad daylight on the streets of the UK in front of hundreds of witnesses. Muslim didn't care. He did not care. They don't care because they know they're backed by George Soros and George Soros's money. That's why they've got all this gall that they've got to do what they do. And my kids are aggravating me with that damn door alarm. Let's see here. I don't have a means to mute. Shoot. What are you doing?
I'm gonna put water on it.
All right, we'll put some water on it. All right. Anyways, there is no mute feature on this. In fact, there is no features at all on this damn thing that I can tell. Let's see here. I think. Let me see. Inspect, loop, show controls. What do we got here? We ain't got much of nothing. Got a little icon for pausing. Oh, gee. All right. What are you doing?
Watching with you.
You watching it with me?
What is he saying?
Who?
Oh, is that a video?
That's a video.
Making it?
Yeah. You got chocolate and lollipop all over your face. Oh, I forgot. You're just so spoiled. You're just so mistreated. I mean, huh? You're just so mistreated, aren't you? That's what they say. They say you're mistreated. Are you mistreated? I didn't think so. All right, get back here with your sister and brother and enjoy your lollipop.
I'm gonna put it up for the camera.
You're moving my mic. All right, they got to see your lollipop. Now get back in there. Anyways, but yeah. Oh, they're just so abused. You can see that, right? Huh? They're just so abused, aren't they? Yeah. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here, but I just wanted to share this little tidbit from Hungary because, it is pretty interesting that Hungary has finally had enough. And it's like, hey, we're going to join Poland and we're going to resist this plan of George Soros and try to put a stop to it. So that's good. That's a good thing. All right. It's going to do it for me. Y'all have a pleasant day and a better tomorrow. Bye.